Hi everyone, I'm Enya from the PwC Next Level team, where we aim to provide value for and between startups, corporates and investors. I have here Robin de Kok from Antwerp Management School and Birgit as well, my colleague around the table. I'll first let you introduce yourselves before we kick off into the content, I would say ladies first, but I don't know, Robin, maybe.
Okay.
If you want to go first.
My name is Robin de Kok. I'm a professor in innovation entrepreneurship at the Antwerp Management School, and I was also one of the lead researchers behind the corporate venturing Barometer.
Perfect. Yes, you
then
want to.
It's my turn, I guess. Hi, everyone. I'm Birgit. I'm a colleague of Enya, working also at the PwC Next Level team. And I focus on the Horizon project, which actually facilitates strategic partnerships between startups and PwC business teams.
Great, okay. Well, first things first, thank you both for making the time to have this hopefully very interesting podcast. The idea of today is that we dive into the 4th edition of the Corporate Venturing Barometer. With corporate venturing, we mean collaboration between startups and corporates in the broad sense. And of course, it has become even more and more important as a driver of innovation. With that being said, so the Corporate Venturing Barometer, we questioned some people that are responsible for innovation in Belgian established companies. And the idea is really to provide insights in the current state of corporate venturing today in Belgium, revealing key trends, challenges, but of course, opportunities in the Belgian market. Let's dive into the content, I would say. We have 3 key findings. The first one is, and I'm going to redirect myself to you, Robin, of course. The first one is more than 90% of the corporates apparently want to collaborate on innovation, but only 47% are actually working together with startups. That's quite a gap. How can we explain this gap?
Well, that's not easy to explain, and that was one of the most remarkable findings in our study. So we call it the innovation gap also in our study. I think it might be the not invented here syndrome. You need to know that corporates are doing already for a long time something right. Mm-hmm. That's because they are that's the reason why they're quite successful. So then all of a sudden they need to work together with startups who don't have this same track record. So maybe that is one of the reasons why they are maybe less enthusiastic to go out there and work with any startup out there. So maybe that is one of the reasons, the not invented here syndrome.
Okay, perfect. Makes total sense. If we then actually see, because there's a gap, it's quite a big one. It is, and indeed, it can be explained or can be linked to the not invented here syndrome. What do you think that, because there's still a lot of corporates that don't collaborate with startups, what do you think are the main reasons why corporates don't collaborate with startups?
Well, we asked that question also in the survey.
Yeah.
So one of the answers that came back was that they find it too complex. So in terms of legal, in terms of IP, there are lots of things you need to think about also when you work together with these startups. So that was one of the main reasons. Another one is that they also, and that goes into the same direction, they had too little knowledge about how to collaborate with startups, how to select them, find them, and those kind of things. So these were the 2 main reasons.
Yeah, there are so many ways to collaborate with startups. You have, and that's also something that comes up in this report. You can just get introduced and do some networking, get to know them and see if there's a potential to collaborate on a specific project. But you can also have a strategy to acquire, and that's a whole lot of investment from a corporate compared to just doing some projects together. And it's really the how-to that is also important to us at Enya, where we guide corporates in setting up those strategies to make sure that it's the right one that fits the company, of course.
Yeah, indeed. Part of our team focuses on external corporate venturing, but indeed a big chunk also internal. And we indeed notice the same things. But it's the 4th edition now of the Corporate Venturing Barometer. So meaning we have 3 previous barometers that we did before. I still remember there is quite a difference. So we see an evolution. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit further on the evolution that we see there?
So I already said that they were not so enthusiastic about working with startups. Well, actually, if you look into the evolution, they are getting more and more enthusiastic about working together with startups. So we saw in 2019, before COVID, that more or less 1 out of 5 corporates worked together with startups. Now we see that it's almost 1 out of 2. So there is definitely a positive evolution there. If you go a bit deeper on the results, we do see that when they are working together with startups, most of the times these are low commitment engagement. So like Birgit already was explaining, this could be mentoring of startups, this could be venture clienting, the first steps that you take to get to know startups most of the times. So not really, there's a lower percentage really investing in startups.
Yeah. In order to increase the percentage, what are actually potential solutions that we see in the market based on the barometer and based on other academic research as well, literature? What are the solutions to increase the amount of collaborations? For instance, a thing that we see in the market is corporates that team up to spread risk, share knowledge, share assets as well. Is this a potential solution, or which other potential solutions do you see in the market?
Well, if you look at the reasons why they are not working at the moment together, then it's most of the times because it's too complex, there's too little in-house knowledge. So one of the obvious things probably is to provide knowledge, provide education, provide support. That is probably, I think corporates also need to have some support there. In collaborating with startups. And once they got the support, maybe they will get used to it and they will get very good in working together with startups. So maybe another advice is to not directly go all in, but first take some smaller steps. We call it in the report chat, date, marry principle. Maybe that's also a first step into slowly going into corporate venturing.
Yeah, and I also see, also with the corporate venturing circle that we're organizing, I mean, in the startup world, sharing knowledge is like common practice. You have the Winter Circus in Ghent, you have a lot of Antwerp-based, Limburg-based...
Beacon in Antwerp.
To
promote Antwerp a bit here. Yeah.
I wanted to say Beacon in Antwerp, but you have the Corda, you have Leuven-Maangate, you have a lot of communities where sharing experiences, sharing knowledge is like common practice. They do it basically every day. And what I see a bit moving in the corporate venturing space as well is that it starts to happen as well. And it's beautiful that corporate venturing leaders openly shared their experience, best cases, worst cases, learnings, failures with each other. So they get inspired by, but this corporate is doing it that way. Maybe we should try it as well. And we have seen it, Enya and I, you as well, Robin, that sharing the knowledge between each other, between peers, can really also, I mean, accelerates activities within the company.
It's maybe then a softer or lighter edition of what we see or what we read about, like the so-called venturing or corporate venturing squads, that they really formally team up as well. The first step is indeed to share some information and best practices and failures and celebrate failures. And definitely, so that's...
the squads is like
it's
a level
formal,
higher.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, but very interesting. The second finding where we would dive deeper into, I would...
I can maybe introduce that one. Robin, in the reports, we see that more than half of corporate C-level spends less than 5% of their time on innovation. I was quite amazed by the amount, by the 5% of their time. And it's a popular topic in corporate venturing units and talks, like how involved should C-level be in the corporate venturing activities. You have pros and cons for very involved and pros and cons for not involved at all. What do you think, or what do you feel is or would be an ideal balance?
I think there definitely needs to be a balance, first of all. And it brought me back, I thought about this finding, it brought me back to Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer is a philosopher, a writer, and he wrote about porcupines, stekelvarkens in English. And today is a very cold day, and what they do, these animals, is they get together when it's very cold. But if they get too close, then they hit each other, they sting each other.
Oh, yeah.
But they still need to find the right distance so that they have each other's heat and warmth. And I think it's a very similar story with C-level and innovation teams. I think on the one hand, they need to be close enough so that they know the processes, know the projects, know the startups that they are going to work with or that they are working with, so that if something changes, they can immediately act and they can immediately maybe support them even more with a bit more money or something like that, or facilitate it. So close enough, but also on the other hand, also far enough so that the innovation teams have freedom to experiment, to test, to fail also. So I think definitely have a great balance there.
Yeah, and I think we can agree that 5% is maybe a bit low. I see you nodding, hoping.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there's so little involvement today of C-level?
Yeah, that's something that we might want to investigate even further. They all say that innovation is super important. If you go and talk to C-level, they will all say how important innovation is. But then again, there's this reality. Also, C-level is under pressure to get results, under pressure of reporting to the board next month. So they get sometimes drawn into the day-to-day short-term goals, operational challenges, and forget about innovation sometimes, because it's never that urgent innovation. It's always a little bit more mid-term, long-term, rather than short-term. So maybe that is also one of the reasons.
But it proven like the of course the benefits, because I remember in the last circle at the source at Spadel, we really had a super interesting discussion that if it's a CEO-led initiative and you have CEO buy-in, it's of course crucial to go fast and to make fast decisions, but also to really have the commitment from dedicated business units and make sure that it's not just innovation on top of their daily work. And so it's of course very crucial. So hoping to see an increase there.
Yeah, and also for the corporate venturing units, they need to feel supported by C-level, and therefore a basic involvement of them is quite crucial to make them feel part of the company in the end.
Yeah, sure.
What we also saw, and that might be linked to that lack of involvement of C-level, is that 56% of the respondents think that their company doesn't have the right skills in-house to build out corporate venturing activities. Of course, I mean, talent is a problem. Finding the right people for the right jobs is an issue. But do you see a relation there between those two numbers, the lack of C-level involvement and finding the right people?
Yeah, that could be. C-level, what we also found, we also did like 15 qualitative interviews to go a bit deeper on the results, and we did it more or less 1 year ago. And then in those interviews, there was an innovation director said to me, okay, C-level is also not always very familiar with a lot of these innovation jargon, these innovation logics. So I think the talents maybe in your company, but also at C-level. I think there's also some room to follow education on innovation also, because innovation has a totally different logic than the typical day-to-day management logic, which obviously the C-level people are very good in. But the innovation logic, it's totally different. It's not necessarily about efficiency. It's more about thinking out of the box, creativity, other logics. So
I remember sorry.
No.
I remember a quote that is stated in the report that the shorter the horizon of the scope of the activities, the easier it is to track progress, of course. But the longer the horizon, the more you look at strategic investments that maybe have a return on investment in, let's say, 5 to 10 years or even more. It's really difficult to track results and progress. And if you have to report to C-level, well, then, of course, what is needed is a relationship of trust. That C-level trusts in the capacity of the corporate venturing unit, that they know what they're doing and that they know what investments are strategically important to the company.
Yeah, and I would also say, adding to that, storytelling becomes even more important, because you don't have any tangible results yet. And then building up a great story is what a lot of entrepreneurs do also.
I wanted to very shortly come back on the fact that it's quite also astonishing that 56% of the people that responded to the survey don't think they have the right capabilities or skills in-house. And I still remember, Robin, and I think it was in one of the previous episodes that you mentioned, if you spend many years working in a company, you also actually kind of get have that culture also as your culture. So I think having someone externally in the company with a fresh, can provide actually a fresh perspective on the decision making, but also on the project.
Yeah, exactly. Innovation shouldn't be the sole responsibility of the corporate venturing unit. Innovation needs to be embedded in the entire company. That doesn't mean that every employee needs to know how AI works, but that does mean that you need to identify people that are keen on working on innovative projects within every business unit of your company. And those people need to be your ambassadors. Those people need to be your first point of contact when you need to assess a startup, whether it's relevant for the business, yes or no. And we see that maybe there's a difficulty in finding the right people. But as you say, Enya, maybe you should look internally as well. You have a lot of gifted, talented people who know the industry, who know what the company needs. And luckily, we see that more and more innovation trainings are embedded in the training curriculum of companies. And so I'm looking at you, Robin. Shouldn't that be a sign of it's we're getting there? We're getting towards towards a context where innovation will be more embedded in the core of the company, or how do you see that?
We're getting there. I think. There's a positive evolution. You can also see that in the study, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I guess I had a conversation with the CEO a few weeks ago, and he said, Robin, with our people, we can't really innovate. But then the question is, did you ever try? Did you ever did an innovation program? And did you trigger those people? You would be amazed of how creative they can be. But on the other hand, it could also be, like you said, Enya, could also be good to have external people coming in on innovation. They also sometimes say that insiders see obstacles, outsiders see possibilities. So they can bring in a fresh view, perspective in your company. So
totally.
I'm going to remind that quote.
That's a good one. And if you don't feel if you mainly want to focus on your internal, the people that you have internally to build further on their skill set, actually, then we open another box of Pandora, and you have to make sure that you remunerate those people in an appropriate way and have them but that's another maybe that's another podcast. But I think that's important as well to look at the remuneration structure.
So maybe you can always invite
Interesting
me,
to hear your opinion of the podcast. Okay.
Maybe we can go to the
yes, to the third
last
topic.
finding.
Yeah. So what we also see in the barometer is that only 25% of the respondents have a clear decision-making protocol for corporate venturing, and 42% think they have the right KPIs for innovation in place. So this is the barometer. We also do some the white papers. That's also a collaboration that we worked on actually in the past. So we touched upon the KPIs and the right framework and measurement before, but maybe diving a little bit back into this aspect. Like I think, the question can arise then, do maybe corporates underestimate the importance of a good preparation if you hear these statistics?
Mm-hmm. I will give you the typical academic answer. It depends. So it depends from company to company. And some companies, you have so many regulations, bureaucracy, a lot of structure, and that kills innovation.
Yeah.
But in other companies, you have less of these things, and that stimulates innovation. But what also happens there is that you have a few very dominant people who take all the decisions, building on their own network, which is also not what you want. So you want to have some kind of middle ground there, where you have a basic lean structure, which helps you to take important decisions. So I think there should be like a middle ground there.
Yeah. I think you also partly touched upon the last question of this podcast, like how would you recommend corporate venturing leaders to take action further?
In terms of measuring innovation then?
Yeah. In terms of especially if you look at the data, like they don't have, or it was 25%, they don't have a clear decision-making protocol, 42% don't have the right KPIs. Yeah, it's indeed like you mentioned. You have to be prepared. You have to, before you engage in any kind of startup collaboration, you first have to, of course, align internally, because innovation can mean a totally different thing for a CFO than a CEO, for instance. That's also something what we saw in practice. Defining your KPIs. Are you going to go for financial linked KPIs or broader KPI sets? It's key that you perform, of course, these steps up front. So.
Well, on the KPIs and on the measurement, we wrote an entire report together last year, and there it was important to find a balance in effort. So you can measure a lot and you can spend a lot of time into that, but I think you need to find easy ways to measure the return on innovation to begin with. And a second point that we also wrote down in that report was that how do you deal with the results of your measurements and with these measurements? Do you see it as a control mechanism, which I don't think is the way to go? Or do you see it as a mechanism where you can say, okay, we need to change, or we need to, we can make the innovation activities even more effective? Yeah,
for sure. Okay, I think we already came towards the end of the podcast. I don't know if you want to, Robin or Birgit, if you want to highlight on any specific thing in addition, or...
No, not really. I believe it's a very valuable document, the Corporate Venturing Barometer, because I believe that especially in Belgium, we should be a bit more proud. Let's make Belgium great again. We should be a bit more proud of what we're doing. And there are really beautiful corporate venturing cases here in Belgium. We see them. Luckily, we know them as well. I think this barometer, I hope it will only inspire people to start with corporate venturing and to find the right path to innovation for their company. And I hope that next time we will see an evolution happening, an even more positive one.
Because I also believe in the importance of corporate venturing. We have a lot of entrepreneurial, creative people that corporates would love to hire, but the difficulty is that we have a startup world that also attracts a lot of these entrepreneurial people. So how do you deal with this as a corporate? And then corporate venturing becomes more and more important.
Exactly.
I also wanted to link on that, because if we look at the reasons of collaborating, and if you look at it from a startup point of view, you saw that a couple of years ago it was also to attract a certain kind of people and a kind of profile. But where you see that there's a huge shift, of course, like startups don't have a lot of trouble anymore in getting actually certain skilled people in. So it's more on the corporate side now that they want to collaborate with startups for that reason as well. Okay, no, thanks to everyone for listening.
Thank you, Enya.
And of course, the results of the Barometer can be discovered on the website of Antwerp Management School or PwC. You can also download all the previous white papers. It's quite a lot. So there's a couple of barometers on there.
We already have an history now.
Yeah, it started in 2018, I think, Robin. So and to anyone listening, I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. Reach out to Birgit, Robin, or myself if you want to spar or if you have some questions. Happy to talk. Thank you. Bye bye.